So it's about educating the client that domestic abuse, and unfortunately it used to be called domestic violence, and I think that label is very disabling, to be honest. So it's about educating the clients to look at the whole plethora that falls under the umbrella of domestic abuse and help them recognize the environment that they're living in and tap into their intuition. Often it's our gut saying, that feels really uncomfortable. Why is he or she speaking to me like that? How am I responding to that? And those are your red flags. Those are the alarm system going, it doesn't sound right, I don't feel right, it's not right. So just about taking note of those red flags in a domestic abuse environment and just tapping into your own radar, your own people reading radar.
Welcome to the Heartbreak to Happiness show with Sarah Davison. If you're struggling with a breakup and you feel shocked, angry, betrayed, devastated, or sad and alone, then this podcast is for you. Best-selling author and award-winning host Sarah Davison shares how you too can get on with your life to heal, grow, and move from heartbreak to happiness. Here's your host, Sarah Davison.
Welcome back to the show. Now today I am super excited to welcome a very special guest. Now she is incredible. She's one of my elite coaches on my coaching team. So Jennie Sutton is here today with me. She is a divorce and domestic abuse coach and a professional Mackenzie friend and also a best-selling author. So Jen, I am super excited to welcome you to the show.
And I'm super excited with that introduction. That is just amazing. Thank you, Sarah. Lovely.
Well, it's all down to your hard work and dedication. I've known you for a long time because you're part of our training community, but you're also one of my most experienced coaches who gets the best feedback, creates massive positive transformations with your own clients in your own clinic. And you're just an all-round wonderful human, Jen. So I'm super excited that you're on the podcast for me today to share some of your wisdom and your tips. Because you've been doing this for a while now. So maybe if we go back to the beginning and you can share your story about how you got into doing this kind of work.
Yes, thank you. Well, I never expected to be a divorce coach, but then, life has its twists and turns, doesn't it? So, yes, I actually hung up my lanyard from the NHS after working for 30 years, both as a nurse and then through to management and a coach. So I have been coaching for quite some time, but not in this arena. And I was really looking forward to my retirement and enjoying my first grandchild and, really full of excitement. However, things didn't pan out quite as I imagined. Unfortunately, I went through what I call the maybe years. I was on a pendulum of indecision for about 3 years as to if I wanted to stay in my marriage or not. Our marriage had become cold. The communication became staccato. Our opinions just exacerbated the holes in our relationship. And loneliness became my best companion, to be honest. And there was such disconnection between us. And it was just before Christmas in 2018 that I really pulled down the blinds on the sun, the breeze, the moon and the stars, and curled up in underneath my duvet for 3 days because I needed to recalibrate and realign myself, and thinking about my relationship was just not helping. And so I just put the duvet over my head and just stayed there. My kids thought I'd lost the plot. They were really concerned. They were in disbelief because this behavior was so unlike me. But I emerged and I knew what I had to be and do. And so January 2019, I said those words to call time on my marriage. And that was the hardest decision. And yet I needed that time because I needed to get in touch with my nervous system and my natural wisdom, because thinking about it wasn't working. So yes, so that was 7 years ago, and I moved to Scotland to heal, to be to be honest. And I since then I've gone through all your training, which is amazing, and I love what I do. So I've got my purpose, my passion back, and it's amazing. So a massive thank you to you, Sarah, as well.
Oh, well, I mean, I've known you for a long time, and you know, your story, I think, is going to resonate with so many of our listeners, because you're right. You get to sort of giving up work and you think you've got the rest of your life planned. In fact, most of us work really hard and do those jobs, those long hours. I mean, NHS, that's super long hours, and a lot of emotions as well go into that job. It's not just a 9 to 5, is it?
No,
It's a
not at
full
all. You
on.
take your job home, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And so you give your all, and then you think, right, I'm going to settle down. But quite often it's that moment, isn't it, when all the noise is gone, so the job or the
Mm,
children leave home, I suppose, and other things, and then you're left with your partner across the table. I think that's a really brave decision, but it's very hard. I think a lot of people might be listening and thinking, well, how do I get to that point? Like, do I need to go to bed for 3 days? Because
no,
because, because
not
you know,
necessarily.
that's a huge shift to make that
Yeah.
decision, and the courage it takes, because as human beings we don't like change, do we? And you had that massive unknown. So in those 3 days, what was the process that you went through? I know you talked about sort of getting back in touch with you. Was it really working out what you wanted for the rest of your life? How did you get
Yes.
to that point?
Yeah. So it was really stopping this working and really feeling what I wanted. I was going through a huge cocktail of menopause, empty nest, which you've mentioned, depression, shame, guilt. Also, I think I brought an attachment style from my childhood into my marriage and expecting my marriage to bring me happiness, and it wasn't. So, all of that, it was really getting in touch with the feelings and recognizing that, do you know, what's the worst case that can happen is that I make the decision and we use the time through separation to really think, well, do we want to go back together? But actually, no. 2 years down the line, we activated that divorce button. So we were separated for 2 years.
Hmm. Are
So
there any tips on if someone's thinking about having that conversation with their partner? That's got to be a scary thing. I never went through that. I was kind of ejected from from my marriage, catapulted out, didn't see it coming.
yeah,
But for you, a lot of people listening will be like, well, I want to have that conversation. How do you initiate that?
I think it's about using a plan. And the plan needs to be, first of all, have the end in mind. What is it that you want? And that will then propel you to that point of making that decision and finding that on the other side you can be more authentic and real and true.
Mm.
So have that end in mind and then start from the beginning. It's all almost like re-engineering. So make a decision, a thoughtful decision, get grounded, practice what you're going to say as well. And I think it's important to use I statements, own what you're going to say, because that's going to also change your energy as well and come from a place of compassion. So we don't need to have animosity. It might end up that way, but we could always start with, you've had years together, there have been some plus points, and come from that frame and say that it's a very difficult decision and you've taken time and that you recognize that going forward, this relationship, this marriage is no longer working for you, and let it land. And when you're planning, plan not to have children around, plan to have downtime. So ideally not followed the following day with work or anything. So if you've got a weekend that's free, the kids are out of sight, not in earshot, then you can go off and let that message land, let the emotions come out, and definitely put your Teflon suit on, which is a tool that you use your imagination for. So you almost have to go back to your childhood and pretend that you've got this Teflon suit on. You could be a superhero, and that any words, any emotions that come back to you just literally slide off. And if you visualize that, visualize your Teflon suit. So part of the planning might be get into clothes that you feel comfortable in, that you feel that you're in an energy of control. So that might be, you know, your jeans kicking off your shoes and having bare feet or socks, whatever it is. But get comfortable in what you're wearing and imagine that that's your Teflon suit, and that will help to protect you, because there will be some emotion that comes back to you because you're further down the line than your partner. They're hearing this for the first time.
Yeah, such wise words, Jen. Really good advice. I think, you know, from your perspective, having gone through it, I think that's going to be quite reassuring for people, that not only there's a good way to plan ahead, practice. I like when you said practice what you're going to say, because sometimes you think about it, don't you? And then when you, it's like that. I don't know if anyone remembers that scene from Dirty Dancing where she gets there and she blurts out, "I carried a watermelon," and everyone's like, what did she say? She's like, "Oh my God, it's not what I wanted to say." But she hadn't practiced what she would say, so it all came out wrong. But there's, you know, those sort of times in our life where we think these are important, we need to plan. I like that. And also, it's very hard to move towards something if you can't see what it looks like. So it's important to have that idea of what your future looks like. So having that plan of, may not work out like that, I guess, because there's no guarantees, but at least say, right, this is the stake in the ground, I'm heading that way.
Absolutely.
I think it's really good advice. I think that's really useful information for people to have. Obviously you went through the coach training. How did you find me in the first place? I don't even know this story. How did you find me?
I found you because I had said that sentence, I want to call time on my relationship, and then I thought, yeah, I'm a coach. Why can't I apply these coaching tools and techniques to myself? I was absolutely gutted. Even though I had made the decision, I was in that grief phase. And I thought, there must be somebody out there. There must be. So I Googled, and I actually signed up to one of your courses. And this was, I think it might have been a heartbreak course. I can't quite remember now. So I just sat there, laptop me, notes, and went through every module all in one. It was like binge watching and binge writing, because I thought I need something, because this is just literally breaking my heart. And then afterwards I thought, well, as part of my healing when I was in Scotland, I thought, do you know what, there's a niche here, I could do this. And then I springboard onto all your programs. But I did reach out to you. In fact, I rang you and then I bottled out.
That's so funny. Oh, well, I mean, I'm glad you joined, because you've come on and you're such a big part of our coaching community. Everybody knows you. You're a big personality in the group, and you look after people. You're kind of like looking after all the coaches and making sure they're on track. And if they're worried about anything or not sure, then you're in there helping everybody. So thank you for being such a big part of that. When you were going through that training, what did you find? Because obviously you went from that place, which is actually interesting as well. I want to touch on the fact you said guilt, because when you're the one making the decision, that is a big part of it, which maybe we don't have of as much. If you're sort of catapulted out like me, I felt guilt for my son that our marriage hadn't worked, but I didn't feel guilt towards my ex, because obviously there wasn't really any guilt to be had. So how do you deal with that specific emotion? Because that's got to be quite difficult. I think people underestimate, even if you make that decision, it can have quite a lot of negative emotions. And you also said you were heartbroken, which again, some people might struggle to understand if that was your decision.
Yeah, so the heartbreak was more about my upbringing, I think, because I was brought up, I'm a child of the 60s, and I was brought up in quite a not religious family, but very much there was that undertones of going to church on a Sunday. And I got married in a church as well, and I took the vows. So there was this sort of society judgment, there was the intergenerational judgment as well that I chose, notice the word, I chose to adopt. And I think then the guilt came from that, and also the heartbreak in terms of, I'm calling time. Should I call time? And that swings and roundabouts, like going round in a revolving door of, you know, should I do this? No, I shouldn't. And this is where the pendulum of the indecision comes. And for me, guilt also for my children. I've got 4 grown-up children, and at the time I had the 1 granddaughter. That's not the case anymore. I've got now 4 grandchildren.
Wow.
I know, it's amazing. I'm known as Super Nonna.
Oh, I love that. Super Nonna.
Super Nonna. And yeah, so it's the guilt of the taking your family along a journey that they didn't anticipate. I remember one of my children saying to me, "But Mum, I always thought you and Dad would be together, you know, throughout my life." And you know, you have to let them express where they're at and the impact on the journey for them, and just honor it, and, you know, just say, you know, well, this is part of life lessons. What can you take from my example going forward as you grow up?
Mm.
And it's better to do, you know, it's better to do that than staying in a relationship that is no longer serving you for whatever reason. Just
A
because
lot of
you've
people
said
do.
some vows in front of God, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people stay in relationships they're not happy in because of reasons like the vows they've said or their religious beliefs or for the children. Do you think there's a difference between how adult children react to how, say, younger children who are still at school, for example, living at home might react?
I think there is a degree of difference because of their development and understanding. And, you know, with younger children, mum and dad or parents are their whole world, you know, and there's a strong influence that's that nurture and nature aspect. With
Mm.
grown up children, I think there is that understanding that we're now adults and we're looking through a lens of being an adult, but nonetheless, there is still that expectation of
Yeah.
mum and dad, as I say, will, or parents will be there forever and a day together. And, you know,
Mm.
that, you know, maybe also, maybe my ex and myself camouflaged the dynamic very well, that they didn't even pick up on the signals. Although I think my daughter did, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Quite often kids do, and I think everyone reacts differently, don't they? I mean, you know, they might have had relationships where it's fizzled out for themselves. So some older kids may think, oh well, I get it, and other kids may be like, but no, you were my security blanket, and now that's not the same, and it is adjustment for everybody. You're right, and I
Yeah,
think like giving
absolutely.
everyone the space, as you say, is really important. Going back to now, you've obviously got a thriving coaching clinic. You see clients going through divorce. You specialise in domestic abuse. You did the master practitioner training with me.
I
You're
did.
also professional Mackenzie friend. So
Yeah.
when you're dealing with people and they're thinking about going through divorce, what do you think most people are struggling with before they actually get to that decision?
Fear of the unknown, I think. The fear of the unknown, the uncertainty. Our brains love to have certainty. And I think that the unknown can really stop you in your tracks, and then it can mushroom. Our brains just have a way of catastrophizing, and we look at things in the worst case scenario, and we start to believe what we visualize or we tell ourselves, but actually factually it's totally incorrect. And it's because our brains are wanting to keep us safe and stuck and in the now, even if in the now is really painful. So my role is really to, I use a metaphor. I don't know if some of the audience will recognize this, but there used to be an advert called Terry's Chocolate Orange. I don't know if you can get them anymore, but the
Yeah, you
advert
can.
used to be,
You
oh,
can.
you can. You used to, it was an expression where you had to tap it and unwrap it. And that's what I do really with my clients. I tap them and I unwrap them so that they can look at all their segments of their life, so that they can really get to grips with, well, what can I control? What is out of my control?
Mm.
Is whatever's out of my control worth pursuing? So it's about using both a practical approach, a logical approach, an emotional approach, looking at the person as a whole. So when we're talking about making a decision, yes, that is a hard, but it's also the whole journey through their life. And,
Yeah.
looking at it as a complete holistic person as opposed to just one segment in that Terry's chocolate orange. There are other chocolate oranges, I'm sure, available. I better put that out there.
There are, but that's one of the best, I reckon. I love that. I love that analogy. I really like that because I think, you know, that's what people are looking for. They're looking to sort of break things down and to get a different perspective. And I think a lot
Yeah,
of the time clients come and they're focused on what they're seeing, what they're thinking about. But actually, when you break it down to like the different segments, as you describe it, there's probably things in there that they didn't want to look at or didn't think about before. Actually, when they look at it, become maybe viable options for things they might want to do or how they might want to move forward. And I think there's also a big fear of regret, right? When people are thinking about leaving, well, what happens if I've made the wrong decision? Do you see that with your
Hey,
clients?
it's Sarah here. Just to remind you that we have 3 online support groups where you can find your tribe and get coaching support from my elite team coaches to help you with any kind of breakup, divorce, separation, toxic relationship breakdown. Get your questions answered and get the boost you need. Also, if you'd like to join our coaching community and turn your pain into your superpower and become a breakup and divorce coach with us, then you can also find the details on my website, sarahdavidson.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Do you see that with your clients?
yeah, I do. I mean, there is that element of regret, and to be honest, I think it's better to step out of a relationship than staying in the relationship, and through stepping out of the relationship, they're looking at their whole life with a different lens because they're not in it. They're not in it. And often with clients who are particularly wondering, have I made the right decision here? There are tools and techniques so that they can take these off. They take off their rose-tinted glasses, stop romanticizing about their relationship, and really look at the relationship as a whole. What was good about the relationship, but what was hurting about the relationship as well. And then working with them and saying, okay, so now you're out of that relationship. Those bits that are hurting, where are they now on a score of 1 to 10? And it just helps the client to really shift their focus and help them to move forward and recognizing, actually, calling time is probably the best thing, because then I can step into my power, be more authentic and be real and true to myself, which is what I encountered when I separated.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get stuck at that point, don't they? It's that emotional kind of paralysis, I guess,
Yeah,
of how do I move through that?
yeah,
And I know
yeah.
you've got a decision-making framework, haven't you, that helps people to take control back with those things.
Yeah, I do. Thank you for mentioning that. So it's using the mnemonic decision. So it's about making the decision, being thoughtful and being compassionate. Then it's about creating the environment, which I've mentioned before, making sure the timing's right, no kids, and preferably, maybe some outside space that you can go outside and get grounded. Then it's about using the statement of I, holding on to what is real for you, as opposed to you, we. No, it's about I. I'm taking responsibility for this expression of wanting to call time on my relationship. Then it's about being really calm, instigating being your calmness and the Teflon suit I've mentioned before. And then also about imagining the end, and about offering reassurance that not all the relationship was bad. If you can work on that and just say, I love the time that we had this, or we had the children, or we experienced this, or we really worked as a team around this particular area. So you're actually pulling out the good bits. And then finally, letting the message land, the next steps, let the message land, and then get grounded and then work on the next step. So it's a decision framework. that
I like that
I
because it
use all
takes you
the
through
time.
all the different stages that are really important. And one
Yeah,
thing that came up a few times there is like being grounded and staying calm, which is probably harder to do than we think in that moment, isn't it? And
yeah,
self-care is quite often something that we don't bother doing in those times because we're worried or we're anxious. So yeah, we're probably doing all the things we should do, like maybe drinking a bit more or not eating the right foods or not sleeping properly because of the natural anxiety. So I like your tips of sort of getting outside. Do you find that that actually helps people? And if people don't want to go outside, what do you think they should be doing?
well, I think if you know that you're going to have this conversation, prep yourself. I know you're a great fan of the 5-star jumps. I'm a great fan of standing like a gorilla beforehand, and that's what I did before this podcast.
Oh, brilliant. There you go. Right, it's
And
worked.
the other thing is really shake it out. Use Taylor Swift music. Shake it out and really vibrate the whole of your body as much as you can. And there's another tip that I came across. This retired officer in the army, he was in the forces, and he said, tap your sternum very fast, no more than 30 times. And this is what he teaches people in the forces when they're going into unknown territory, so to speak. So all of those tips are accessible and at your hand, fingertips as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's lots. I trained in EFT, the tapping techniques, and it definitely helps, I think, to sort of regulate. And I think the thing is that we can all control how we feel. And I think
Oh,
once we understand that, then how do we change how we feel? I think for a lot of people, they're not sure how to do that, or even if they can, but once you know you can, and you definitely can, in that reactionary phase, then obviously you'll be reacting, but then it's time to take a deep breath, maybe do some of that tapping or deep breath or 5-star jumps or sound like a gorilla, all the things that will try and sort of shift your physiology, I think help a lot because that's an instant state changer, which helps to calm the nervous system. I think just talking to you, Jen, is very calming. So if people are interested in getting some more help, then obviously they can contact you. One of the things that I know is close to your heart, you specialise in, is domestic abuse. So that covers sort of people coming out of toxic, unhealthy dynamics of relationships and helping them recover. So can you explain a little bit about domestic abuse? Because I think it can be very misunderstood, can't it?
It can. And fortunately, there was an update in the legislation for domestic abuse that came out in 2021, the Domestic Abuse Act, which really demonstrated a little bit more about what domestic abuse is. Because domestic abuse is on a spectrum. And it could be economic, it could be financial, it can be sexual, it can be psychological, physical. And, still clients that I receive today, I work with today, they say, well, he never beat me up or she never beat me up. And I said, well, what else, compare your relationship with some other couples that you're familiar with, what's the difference there? Oh, well, he does shout a lot, or I feel less than, or not able to express myself, and there's a feeling of walking on eggshells. So it's about educating the client that domestic abuse, and unfortunately it used to be called domestic violence, and I think that label is very disabling, to be honest. So it's about educating the clients to look at the whole plethora that falls under the umbrella of domestic abuse and help them recognize the environment that they're living in and tap into their intuition. Often it's our gut saying, that feels really uncomfortable. Why is he or she speaking to me like that? How am I responding to that? And those are your red flags. Those are the alarm system going, it doesn't sound right, I don't feel right, it's not right. So just about taking note of those red flags in a domestic abuse environment and just tapping into your own radar, your own people reading radar.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think a lot of people misunderstand it and think, well, it's not happening to me. But then they come along to us as coaches, and then as you start to, as you said, to unpack it all, then they start. And I think that's a great tool comparing with other people, because I think you live in your bubble and think, oh, well, this happens to everyone. But
Yes.
sometimes it's behind closed doors, isn't it? And people
Yeah.
might think, it's not abuse because he doesn't hit me.
Yeah. And your partner might be absolutely charming in an audience setting, and you're there looking, thinking, oh, isn't he, she wonderful? And then the doors close, and it's like down with the mask has come off, and it's totally different. And that is the huge red flag. And and I know that you're going to bring us on to your training, but I think it's really relevant now, if I may just raise the fact that when I went through the master practitioner training, the DASH charity training, the domestic abuse stops here training, which we all have to go through in order to be an expert in domestic abuse, it was that I had a penny dropping moment, because they use different archetypes to explain the different manifestations of behaviour that our partners may be demonstrating in the realm of domestic abuse. And for me, it was the king of the castle, because the rules constantly changed that I was experiencing. One minute I'd be doing something, and then next minute, no, we're not doing that. And it wasn't, no, we're not doing that. It was critical and criticism, and then the belittling. So I think it's really, really key to get familiar with domestic abuse as a whole, for both client and definitely for coaches too in this arena.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've worked with a lot of people going through domestic abuse, haven't you? And you were telling me the other day about the story about a woman who was saying, look, I haven't suffered any violence. I don't think it's domestic abuse. Can you share anonymously, obviously, about that?
Yes. So yes, this client, female, and she had 4 children, 1 to 15, so from newborn to teens. And she became a client, and we worked together, and she was sharing things, for example, sexual abuse, economic abuse, and emotional abuse. But she said, he was never physical. And working with her and using some of the tools and techniques that are available as a domestic abuse specialist, I just let her read what was available and the behaviours that some of the key signs are. And it was just like watching the light bulb shine bright. Oh my goodness, he does this, he does that, and that comes under domestic abuse. Yes. And she recognised that her children were, for want of a better word, influenced, suffering as a result of that environment. And she made a decision there and then. I can't have this pattern of behaviour repeating and impacting my children. So as a result, we talked through getting herself involved with a domestic abuse charity local to her, the police. She went to church, so she had support from the church as well. And she removed herself and the children out of that environment, just grabbing what she needed and having key documentation in her grab bag rather than clothes and things, because then you can replace those, but you can't necessarily replace key paperwork, passports, driving license, policies that you might have, and accounts and all of that. So just getting prepared, I think, is really key. Anyway, she's turned it all around. Her children are happy. Her oldest is now at college, and she's stepping back into her power and stepping into her accountancy career that she used to have before her.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love those stories where you see those transformations with people. And because we work with people sometimes over quite a long period of time, don't we? Because with those toxic relationships, it's not one session really. You support them through quite a lot over time. I think it's amazing when people take their power back from the tools that we train and we show how to use. And even just like you were talking about that list in the training about what are the signs of domestic abuse.
Yes.
Like you can sometimes see people go, oh, I didn't realize that was abuse, but because it's small things that on their own don't maybe look like an abusive act, or just, it could be anyone having a bad day. That could be a comment or a put down or a name calling. Not nice, but it does happen. But then this is consistent and persistent over a long
Yes.
period of time.
Yes.
And I think that's the defining moment when people see the list, go, well, yeah, there's that and there's this and all those things actually, or most of them. And then it's like, oh, okay, so it's about shining a light on those things so they become consciously aware of what's going on, and then redefining those boundaries of, well, what is acceptable behavior for you? Do you want to stay in a relationship like this? And is it serving you? If not, how do we help you move forward safely, I guess, is the key with these kind of relationships.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, when they read these lists that we have available to us, it's the accumulation. It might have just started off with one thing, and then there's another and another and another. And you're right. Is it a relationship, one that you can thrive rather, or are you just tolerating? We all have choices. And even if are living in a domestic abuse arena, there is still a choice. And the choice may be just a small choice initially, is just to get yourself known to a domestic abuse charity organisation that's available to you. And that just opens up another Pandora's box that will support you going forward.
Yeah. And your local domestic abuse charity will be confidential, and they will believe you. I think those are key things. And also they're networked in to your local community, so it can help you and do a risk assessment, which I think is really important. I mean, I think, gosh, you've worked with so many people over the years. One of your signature tools that I love, maybe we could talk a little bit about that, is your one about forward framework. I love this.
Framework.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So it's a program that I put together, and actually I'm launching it again. So it's always with a cohort, because I think peer support is really important. Sharing stories and just having, an informal buddy who will support you and be your cheerleader as well, I think is really powerful. So the forward framework takes the cohort right the way through where they are now, so facing their fears, right the way through a 7-module that they take at their own pace, and to a turning point where they can look at the various options that are available, which might be stay in their relationship, work on their relationship, or it might be, no, actually, this relationship's no longer working for me, and enabling the client to make those choices through informed decision making. So I have an expert panel from both legal and financial arena, and they share the particular questions around, well, what's child arrangements, what's a no-fault divorce, what's mediation about, how do I access it, do they take sides, getting a complete 360 understanding before they even utter the word, actually, I want to call time on my relationship. So the forward framework works with the client before they utter that words, and so that it can make an informed choice all the way through.
I think it's incredible and much needed, Jen. I really do. And I think your support and having that when you're trying to make these massive life-changing decisions is really important. So yeah, fantastic. Tell us a little bit about the book that you're a best-selling author, Emotional Alchemy, which is a co-authored book with me. Delighted that you have your own chapter in there. Tell us a little bit about that, because you're now a best-selling author. It's out, it's doing super well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm so excited because it's a complete work of both yourself, Sarah, as our inspiration behind the divorce coaching aspect, and it's 19 other coaches who are sharing their story and helping clients or readers to really understand that they're not on their own. And it's a bit like a Pandora's box of help and support in between the pages. Obviously there's ebook as well, but my particular chapter is looking at the decision, because I'm so passionate about that, because I spent 3 years in the maybe, zone of maybe, do I know, talking myself out. And, you lose time, you lose life as a result of that. So I'm incredibly passionate that no person, be it woman or male, stands in that zone of being in the maybe years, that they come to a decision so much quicker and then they can crack on and enjoy the rest of their life. So I'm really super excited about the emotional alchemy and all that it's going to bring and help impact this world in the arena of separation and divorce.
Yeah, I think it's helping so many people, because just the openness of the coaches sharing their stories about what they went through and how they turned their pain into their superpower and now helping people with what they're doing, but also just being open, because I know your story will help many. I know this podcast will help many who are at that decision-making point. I know you're known as the decision coach as well. Do you have a message for everyone listening, or one final message for people, that women maybe who are feeling stuck right now?
Yes, I do. I think as women, we perhaps are influenced by our upbringing, and we tend to be people pleasers and nurturers and caregivers and put everybody else there in front of us. Well, I'm going to say stop. Because when you actually make this decision, it's time for you to put yourself at the front of that queue. Your children will thrive as a result of their parent, their mother, their father being in a better place than actually putting up with a toxic relationship, or just a relationship that is no longer serving you. So it's about the opportunity to really thrive and be a role model for your children. So yeah, it's time to put yourself at the front of the queue.
Absolutely is. Well said. So if people are listening and want to put themselves at the front of the queue with coaching with you, Jen, how do they find you?
Yes, so I've got a number of different ways. I've got a website, which is www.untyingtheknot.me. And on there, I've got a library of resources. I also have a quiz, which is called the Midlife Marriage Maze, where you can make a decision. It's very interactive and you can make a decision, a bit like a cosmopolitan quiz. So there's a little bit of fun there. I'm also on Instagram, which is coach_untying the knot. And I also have a Facebook group, which is Untying the Knot, Navigating Separation and Divorce. So there's lots of ways to reach out. And I'm on LinkedIn too.
You are, and you're fantastic, and you're super talented, Jen. So if anyone listening needs some help, needs some guidance, then I highly recommend Jen as one of my coaches as well. Train with me and doing amazing work out there helping people in the world. Jen, on my podcast, I always have the same final question for all my guests. As you know, the podcast is called Heartbreak to Happiness. And so what is happiness for you, Jen?
Happiness is a feeling inside. Every day, search for that little golden nugget of happiness. And that might be looking at the sky. The sky's blue at the moment, it's not raining. That's a little bit of happiness. So happiness is within you. Just search for it every day and hold on to it. And then you've got that lovely accumulative effect of having a happy day.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for coming in and sharing your tips, your frameworks, so much useful information. I know that's really going to have resonated with so many people. So thank you for being a fabulous guest.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And thank you to everybody who's listening.
That's it for today's episode. Do head over to untyingtheknot.me and find out more about Jen. If you'd like to train as a coach like Jen did with me, go over to sarahdavidson.com as well. Follow me on Instagram, Sarah Davidson Divorce Coach, for daily tips. Subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And we very much look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
That's it for today's episode of Heartbreak to Happiness. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to win a free ticket to Sarah's virtual Heartbreak to Happiness retreat. This is a transformative combination of live webinars with Sarah herself, coupled with her empowering online video program designed to help you cope better with your breakup and start feeling happy again. Thank you, and join us again on the next episode for another dose of Heartbreak to Happiness.